Greetings from Seattle, Washington, and the great Pacific Northwest. I am your host, Jason Rigdon, and you are listening to the Podcast of Mystery. On this episode, I talk with Jay Hill of Wisconsin Paranormal Research. This interview was only supposed to be 20 minutes long, but Jay was so insightful and fascinating that the interview lasted an entire hour. I still have so many questions for Jay. I hope I can have him back on the show sometime soon. I'm sure you're going to love listening to this conversation. But first, I've got this quick message. Do you want more episodes of the Podcast of Mystery? Do you want to hear more conversations about the paranormal, the strange, and the unknown? Do you think there is something special about this audio program? If you do, would you please consider supporting the Podcast of Mystery on Patreon for $5 a month? There's a link in the show notes, or you can just visit patreon.com/podofmystery. If I can reach my goal of 100 patrons, I'll start doing this show twice a week. One episode will be free, and the other one will be an exclusive premium episode only available to my patrons. Please visit patreon.com/podofmystery. Your support would be greatly appreciated.
My name is Jay Hill. I am the founder and leader of Wisconsin Paranormal Research. The team is fairly new, maybe 2 years. We've been on different investigations. We also do like cleansings and kind of a purification of locations that have negative entities in them. Actually, we have been getting more cases for that lately. We have two mediums on our team, myself included. Pam is our other medium, and then we have two other investigators that are younger and are learning the ropes, so to speak. And then we have a couple of extra investigators that were with me before this whole thing started, and we will kind of prime them when they are available. They live way up north of us, so when we have cases near them, then we'll probably, prime them to help out. But we're a fairly small team, and we kind of like it that way. So our home base is in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and we travel, and we help whoever we can. My motto for myself is, helping people is in my DNA, and the dead are no exception.
And so what kind of motivated you to start this organization?
I had been involved in the paranormal my whole life. I had basically seen apparitions when I was younger. I have had experiences with entities in different places. Places I lived, the majority of places. I moved around a lot when I was a child, and then when I was, in my early 20s and 30s, and everywhere I moved, there was something there. So, I decided to finally accepting my gifts and put it to action. And we call ourselves paranormal investigators. We're technically not ghost hunters. So it's kind of our thing to ourselves is that we want to find out the history of areas that are of interest. We try to find lost history, the information of lost history that people don't know about, kind of connect the dots, so to speak.
So what was it like being a child and seeing these things?
It was kind of cool. I actually lived, when I was in high school, I lived in a house in actually an old house in Lake Geneva, and that's when I saw my first full body apparition that was standing at the foot of my bed one night, and actually my sister in the next room had the same entity show herself to my sister. And so we kind of compared notes and realized that, hey, there's something to. We knew right away when we walked in that house that we looked at each other, and my sister and I were like, "Oh wow, this is pretty cool." And so, and my mom had said to my dad, she looked at him and says, "Don't get him started." And evidently, my dad must have been sensitive to that. We knew nothing about that, and at that time, we didn't know what that was. And my dad was trying to play innocent and saying, "What did I do?" And so, and that's kind of where it started. And my sister and I are only a year apart, and basically we would have premonitions, and when we had bad feelings, bad was going to happen, something would happen. So that's kind of where it started, so to speak.
Did your parents know about this? How did they react?
My mom was, not that she wasn't a non-believer, but she didn't put any stock into it just because of the fact that she didn't want to encourage it. My dad never really said anything about it. When we brought it to my mother's attention, she would dismiss it or whatever. But it was kind of hard to dismiss because of the fact that not only did my mother own a antiques shop in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, there was a lot of antiques in our house. And so, some of the old stories of some things that are attached to objects, we didn't really understand that. Got to understand that was 30 years ago. That really wasn't kind of heard of, until as of late, where things would be supposed haunted or have something attached to them or whatever, But when I would come home from school, at the time, the coffee pot would be on, or there would be a light on, or something, and a door would be locked in my bedroom, which was kind of a running joke. Because it was in a really old house. It was kind of like a mansion type house. And so I would go and tell my mother, "Hey, you really need to turn the coffee pot off." And she would immediately say that, "Hey, I always turn it off," and this and that. And so that was kind of where we really started to kind of take it serious. That, hey, there's something here,
Were these frightening experiences, or did you feel like, these were threatening you in any way?
Yes and no. Because of who I am now, I didn't understand the gifts that I have, but I could always sense entities or spirits, so to speak. I could hear them in my inner ear. There was 2 spirits there at the time, a young lady and an older guy, and he was a kind of a brute. I would say it was probably the 30s era, 20s or 30s era. And I had basically my third eye, he had a brown pinstripe suit, and he would kind of harass me at times, kind of like yelling in my ear type deal. I didn't really realize what that was. I kind of thought I was going crazy. And so I didn't really know how to handle that. And plus, at that time, when you're that young and that, I wasn't understanding what was happening. But there was a couple times where I got scared out of my room. But other than that, there's been other times. I have actually lived in a place where it was severely haunted, and I was in my 20s, and I'd gotten pulled off the bed and verbally accosted with my normal ears, and thought that there was somebody actually in my room or in my apartment and where I was, but there was nobody there.
So this might be a kind of a naive question, but what exactly is a medium?
A medium who can communicate with the dead, speak to spirits, people who have passed, have intuitions where they could sense things, basically kind of be clairvoyant, can hear things maybe in their mind, where others can't. Everybody has that ability, but it's the majority don't, and go their whole lives without realizing that you can tap into that. But being somebody who can communicate with the dead or know that somebody is around who's deceased or something like that, or if it's even something very nefarious or evil, I've ran into that a couple different times in my life. I've been jumped, basically, like kind of like where something takes your body over. Not like a possession, but it's more like, I call it jumped. And actually, it was a vehicle I bought that actually had an angry man in it, and I don't know why he was still in this vehicle. I don't know if he killed himself in the vehicle or what he did, but he couldn't leave the vehicle. It's like he trapped himself, and he was very angry. I would go out to my car every morning, and there would be a religious station on my radio, and I never put one on the night before, and my radio would be on and this and that. And one day he jumped me, and I felt all the anger and hatred and fierce, I would say evil, but it was more anger than anything else. And I have certain prayers that I say, because I am religious, I'm a Christian, so I just had to say prayers and basically said, get off, and I shortly got rid of that vehicle.
Yeah. So that seems like a good choice. How long do these experiences last when one of these things, like, kind of, as you said, jumps you?
This one I was on my way to work, and I was probably just starting my route to work, and I work an hour away, and I had to stop at a gas station to get coffee or something like that, and it made me stop a little quicker at this other gas station, and it took me 15, 20 minutes to get them off. And then I cussed him out and said, okay, that's enough. And then ever since then, I have a strict regiment of guarding myself with white light and all that and the prayers. And before I even leave the house, I have to every morning. So
this, were you late for work? Did you have to explain to your boss what happened? How did that go? Or did you just say it's something else?
No. Oh no. I always leave an hour early. I had plenty of time.
Oh, okay. So you had plenty. Okay. Because I mean, it'd be hard to be maybe honest about why you were late, because people judge about this kind of stuff.
Oh yes. And I tell you, I am. It's taken me a long time to accept my gifts and knowing what I can do and how I help people, and it's very difficult. It's a struggle within me to accept that, because of the fact that I wasn't raised that way. We weren't exactly a totally like Catholic or Baptist or anything like that, but we were religious, and I was, a Christian after so many years, and I had accepted Christ and all this other stuff. And so it went against some of my moral code of, they talk negative about this in the Bible. They say stay away from seers and mediums and all this other stuff. And so it's a struggle, but I know that within my heart, and I know that I help people, and I have helped people, and I've helped, and my team has helped people. So I know that I'm doing something for the good. You know what I mean? For the greater good, so to speak.
Was your way of fighting off, you talked about that entity in your 20s that pulled you off the bed. Did you kind of defend yourself in a similar way?
I basically, that was right after I was saved, basically. It was a voice telling me that I own you, and it was a voice that was telling me that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And that was the only time in my entire life that I can remember that I was that scared and that fearful that I wanted my mother. I was 24 years old. I was terrified. And then I don't remember anything. I remember waking up the next morning and asking myself, did that really happen? Or was I dreaming? But I knew that I wasn't dreaming. I was trying to delude myself is what I was trying to do.
So at what point did you start, like you said, helping people with these spirits?
Probably I've had a few health scares in my life. I had a stroke when I was 42. That took me off drinking, and I kind of cleaned up my life pretty much after that because I was always running from something. So, yeah, I just basically had I had other health issues that prevented me from working and doing this. And then when I finally got into a routine where I've been at my job now for a long time, and I just kind of when my health scares were not very prevalent and I was on the mend and this and that, it was kind of like I woke up one day and I could hear my guides, basically my spirit guides that everybody has but don't realize it, that were basically telling me, hey, it's time that you start, living true to what and who you are. And so I decided to, incorporate the paranormal team, and I added my other investigator, Pam, who's a medium, and she's very good, and she's been helping me as well. And having two mediums on a team, and it makes investigation a lot more easier because we can understand a little bit more what's there, if it's negative or if it's not, or if it's just residual, or if it's, so.
Was it hard to get people to, join your team? Because, I don't know if I would be willing to join and go into places and encounter these things.
Not really. I work with one of the investigators. Her name's Alyssa Ruiz, and we had talked about this 3 years ago. We both had the same interest in the paranormal and this and that, and we said, maybe someday we should put together a team, and we kind of just left it at that. And then when I was with my wife's cousins, we had talked about it then. The two that live up north right now. I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's maybe try to put something together. And I brought it to Alyssa when I went to work the next day, and she was like, let's do it. And I started, doing all the things I needed to do to get, start buying equipment and my research and reading up on things and studying. I knew a lot about the paranormal because my whole life anyways, but you can never, stop learning. So that's why I basically was just, and then the one day was probably a year after we started, Pam contacted me on our paranormal page on Facebook and asked, how do I start my own team? And I'm looking to do this, and I kind of heard, why don't you just ask her to join the team? So I did, and kind of the rest is history. I mean, we're connected that way. If I'm going through something during the day and I'm thinking about something and I have an idea for her or whatever, she's already thought of it. I'll call her up and then she'll be like, I was just thinking about that today. We do that a lot.
So once you got your team together, what was it like maybe going on that first case or that first mission, that first investigation?
It was, me and Pam had done a couple by ourselves, just being her. But when we had Alyssa and our other investigator, Marissa Bravo, it was a house, and it wasn't not too much. It was, the excitement was there, the joy of helping, but also the joy of finding out what is actually in the house. Me and Pam had kind of sensed some things, and knew somewhat about the history and heard from first accounts and second and third accounts of people's stories of that house, and it was good. I mean, we realized that we were on the right path. We were doing what we needed to do, and we had gotten a little bit of evidence, but it was any evidence is good. We got a little bit of evidence. We would have liked more, but we were satisfied that we were all together doing something important, so.
And as a medium, when you're going out there, how do you feel? I think you said you bring some equipment with you. Does the equipment like agree with your knowledge?
Yeah, it does. We try to keep it simple. I know when we first kind of started, I wanted to get the biggest and the best gear and this and that. As time went on, I realized if you keep it a little bit more simpler, is better. I have equipment that I hardly even used, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to use this. It's just there's so many more inexpensive gadgets, if you want to call them, that are out there that are just as good, that give you similar results. And my results that I look for are the evidence of what was there, what had transpired there, what is causing this activity now, and there's some pieces of equipment, even the most expensive ones, just don't do that. You can't avoid good old intuition. I mean, that whole feeling of, even people who do not understand what a medium is, or if they're not a medium, or if they're not psychic in any fashion, they still have those emotional senses. So when you walk into a building and you get the chills and you're like, why did I just get, that's your body responding to something otherworldly. Not all the time, but there are times where and normal people just dismiss it and whatever, Me, on the other hand, I have to look deeper and say, okay, what caused that? Is it something that I need to look into, or is it something I can just dismiss?
And how long have you been doing this again? This specific thing of this group, this team?
2 years.
In that 2 years, what have been some of your more memorable investigations?
We did an investigation of a house that is probably the oldest house in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's called the Maxwell Mansion, and I've mentioned it before on the other podcast I was on. We had just met the new owners today, well, for the second time, and they're really into what we do. And we try to explain to them, there's several spirits here, and they're on board, they're interested, and I'm hoping that in the future that we will be able to investigate that place more. We've done it probably, 3 or 4 times. But that is probably one of my favorites. I've liked that mansion since I was in high school. So I love that place. It's actually a hotel, and the stories of that place are plentiful, and the diversity of some of these stories, range from full body apparitions to knocks and footsteps and things moving and this and that. And just recently, when we were there talking with the owners and we were getting ready to leave, because we just leaving, we're going to our cars, and she had come out and she had showed us a picture of something, a mist or something that was in one of the rooms that she was doing in the some event they were doing in the ballroom, and it wasn't there 2 pictures after or before. So she was really excited about that. Like, they want to let you know that they're there. They're not bad. They're not, but they just want to let you know that they're there, So I would have to say the Maxwell Mansion is probably one of my favorites. And because of the fact that COVID hit when it did, it really hindered our investigations, so.
Do you think that there's more people maybe seeing things or experiencing things because they're at home more because of the whole COVID quarantine thing?
Yeah. I think that because the COVID, what a lot of people don't realize is that all these people who live their lives on a daily basis out in the hustle bustle, so to speak, of the world, when they are stuck at home and they don't work or go out or do whatever, it can have an uptick in paranormal activity. I mean, because of the fact that you're there. I mean, you could live in a house for 20 years and never realize that you had a spirit there because you're never there. And it's been several times where we ran into people that they never knew. This activity that a person had been telling me, hadn't happened, and all of a sudden it happens because you're there. You're there all the time. You're going to see it. I'm not saying that all houses or anything like that are haunted. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's people who are now kind of inwardly at home and spending more time with family or with friends or whoever, and not going out and doing anything. Your brain can really, if your brain's not used to that and if you're not used to being stuck at home, it's hard on the body if if you get out of that whole loop of going out and going to work all the time. And people get in a rut. People get they go to work, they come home, they sleep, they eat, whatever, the whole 9 yards. When that routine is disrupted and people are stuck at home, it wreaks havoc. That kind of a change can wreak havoc on people's minds, especially if it's fear-based. So, and I hate to say it, but there's been an uptick of paranormal as well as suicides.
Is there a connection between, a person's emotional state and, the spirit world? Like, I know there's a lot of stories I've heard of people, when they're very emotional, that sometimes things are maybe attracted to this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's whatever frequency you're on. We're all made up of energy. So it's basically if you've got a situation where, you're stuck at home and your emotions are wreaking havoc on you, you're going to put out that energy. You're going to put out that depression or, that. And it can fuel. If there's something, even if there's something dormant in this person's house for years, and all of a sudden, that energy is like, it's going to stick to the walls like sap. So same with residual energy, things that have happened. There's a house that had an abusive family in it, and for 50 years, all it was abuse and people verbally yelling and screaming. That house is going to absorb that energy. So you go into it, and I've walked into houses before where I knew stuff like that has happened. And it's really heavy. It's hard to breathe. And that can be any normal person, even somebody that's not a medium or clairvoyant or anything. It's that whole emotion state, especially for people who are stuck in their home because of this COVID. It's a good possibility that it could cause some adverse effects.
And are these spirits, are they actually like the souls of the dead, or are they more like psychic echoes of things in the past, maybe, or something else?
It could be both. I mean, kind of the psychic, like echoes of the past are what we call residuals, that play like a broken record or like a rerun. they're not really substantial enough. I mean, certain people can sense it and say, "Oh, my house is haunted," and this and that, and then you go there, and then most investigators can figure out that it's residual. Because if you can't interact with it and you don't get a response in that sense, where if you're left with, well, gee, I got no communication. There's no one answering my questions or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's not real, but when you're left with an unanswered question like that, you don't know what it is. You can assume that it's probably residual, which probably I would say maybe 75% of the time it is residual. But it takes a while for investigators to really, if they're really serious about this work, it's not about ghost hunting. Because I don't consider myself, because I don't hunt ghosts, and I investigate for proof of the evidence that's being presented. I want the answers, and some people just want the thrill. Well, to each his own. People want to go out and be ghost hunters. Be ghost hunters. Just don't be disrespectful. And that's, we don't provoke. We don't do anything. We always go into a residence or even a building, and state our intentions, because it's all about intentions. If you have the right intentions of what you're doing when you're investigating the paranormal, then you pretty much kind of guarded yourself against anything negative. Not all the time, but if you go in there provoking and starting talking garbage, what comes out comes back, and if you get pushed or scratched or whatever, then I hate to say it, but, who started it? My investigator had said this today, and I totally 100% agree. You go into a place and your intentions are to disrupt, disrespect, or anything like that, all for the sake of evidence. Who's to say that entity, who may or may not have been negative, but is upset or mad because of the fact that you disrespected them and this is not your house? And who's to say that entity doesn't want to follow you home and cause you havoc? It's like, how would you like me to go in your home and do the same thing you just did to me? So you have to be, fair-minded of that. It's all about your intentions and how you view what your investigation is going to be. If you're going to go in there and be disrespectful, then you're asking for trouble.
I think earlier you said that you also help the spirits. How do you do that?
Well, being a medium is one of the things that I've been able to do, as well as Pam. Pam does it better than I do. Cast lights to help spirits cross over. We envision the light in any spot. We tell them, you can go into the light, you can cross over, you can be with your loved ones, and this and that. And we've helped quite a few. Pam has helped quite a bit. I had one where we were in a house, actually one of the house that we investigated, our first one. We went back to kind of cleanse it because this lady was trying to sell it and cleanse it, and it was an old Victorian style house. Actually, Pam had set up kind of a one-way doorway, basically, that just said, okay, here's the light, you guys want to cross over. And I was just kind of standing there waiting, and she's like, come feel this. And I walked in. It was like walking into a static charge, I don't know what you call it, a wall of electricity. And I could feel it through my whole body, and it was just bizarre. And I could, in my mind, I could see these people just crossing over one by one. And in my mind, as crazy as this sounds, I heard one of them said, hey, I knew your mom. I was like, what? My mom and dad are both passed. So, but that was a really, I eye-opening moment for me. I, I still wrestle with who I am. So to hear that and to sense what I sensed and felt what I felt, that was kind of a push in the right direction for me. I needed that validation.
So when you're communicating with these entities, these spirits, is it verbal, or are you doing it kind of mentally?
It's usually both actually. I've done it both. I helped somebody I knew whose husband passed away, and she was asking me about him, and I had basically said he's making his rounds because he had just recently passed in his sleep, and it was kind of sudden. And from what I could see, is it's called remote viewing. It's kind of like viewing what that spirit is doing, like outside looking in. And when he came back to the house, basically he felt guilty, and he knew he was gone, but he felt guilty of the way he left, and he owed people money and this and that, and I knew that there were people, his parents were waiting for him on the other side. So remotely, I casted a light in her basement, in her laundry room, where he was sitting on his tools because he was kind of stuck there and moping and thinking, this is terrible, and I feel so much guilt and this and that. And I casted it, and she went down there that night, and lit a candle and had her talk with him and said it's okay to go home and and all this stuff. And she said after that, I saw he crossed, but she said the heaviness was gone. She felt the air was lighter. She said it was just really, she said it was like night and day. She was just very thankful, and she felt better. I feel like that she could move on as well, and which she has. And that's what it's about. It's kind of like dealing with things that other people, the majority of people in this world who don't express their gifts, who don't understand this and think it's a bunch of garbage, and they think it's fake, and they think it's that. That's fine. People aren't, entitled to their opinion. But I know in my heart that I have helped this person. And so it's like I'm called to do that. And that's why I do it.
Have you ever encountered a spirit that maybe didn't want to move on, that maybe it was content where it was, or maybe it was like protecting something?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's spirits who don't want to cross over, who fear condemnation, judgment, are afraid of the light, that they're going to go this way or go that way or whatever, or they're full of guilt, and they don't deserve God's grace, so to speak. Or they're just people that, they feel like they have unfinished business, or there's some that feel that they're not dead, and they don't realize it, and they don't want to believe it, and they're very dismissive and this and that. But what they have to realize is the longer that you stay on this plane and not cross over, it's unhealthy. The spirit is supposed to flourish, to grow, so that they can learn more, and especially what they didn't learn here. And it's just, it's one of those things where I've run into a few that we're just not ready to go over, but there have been ones who have crossed over and then do come back to visit from time to time. And usually I can tell the difference. It's a different energy field that I know that, hey, like My mom is crossed over. I know that, and my mom comes back every once in a while. I don't intentionally talk to her, but I know she's there. But it's not all the time, you know. I mean, it's just one of those things where, you know, some don't want to go, and some are just. A lot of them are just because they have unfinished business, or they think that they have unfinished business.
Well, like you're saying, with, you know, giving them their due respect, it must be a very delicate operation to convince them that they are dead without offending them.
It is. Yeah, it is very delicate. What a lot of people don't realize is that when you're dealing with the dead and the deceased, it's almost like you have to treat them with empathy in that sense. You know, you have to be able to make them feel real, you know, reassured to that, you know, saying, hey, you know, you can't just come across and saying, hey, guess what? You're dead. What are you doing here? But there's a lot of paranormal teams that kind of do that, you know? I mean, and I'm not bashing any paranormal teams, don't get me wrong, but it's just there's different styles for different groups of people in the paranormal field that you know, do that. Either they don't quite understand yet, or this is the way they do things. And you know, we've ran into the aftermath of a team who helped a family, or who tried to help a family. And we got there thinking it was an investigation, but it actually turned out to be a cleansing, and to get rid of whatever was there, and to help a child, and who was also gifted. They didn't realize their child was 9 years old and he could see dead people. But you know, I dedicated probably good 3-4 months to communicating with that family to make sure that child was protected and that child was okay, and that the negative, you know, entities or entity was there, is gone and doesn't come back. You know, we had to basically, a group came in and tried to fix it and said, oh yeah, you can't do this, and then they would never contact them back, or they would never say anything, and no updates when they would ask for updates. And then they basically said, you need to find a priest or a shaman or something. We can't help you. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't know, then try to get somebody else in there to help you. So they didn't, but one of the family members contacted us, and we went in there and we took care of business. And we didn't hold that judgment against the other team or teams that were there that couldn't do anything. It's just the fact that they that's not what they did. You know, that's not what they were doing. You know what I mean? They had a different path of what they were taking. And we decided that, you know, we're not here to place blame or to cuss out whoever was there before, but to assess and to help that family right then and there, and not worry about what had happened. Let's move forward and try to fix this now. And that's exactly what we did.
And are these entities more attracted to mediums? Like, can they sense it?
Oh yeah. Let me tell you. Yeah. We give off, and I would say everybody does, but for some reason we attract the negative like bears on honey. We've ran into, I don't know if you know anything about witches like Wicca and this and that, and there's, you know, other groups that practice not so good stuff, and I'm talking about like witchcraft and stuff. We've had 3 run-ins with witchcraft in the last 6 months. And every time we had to turn it down because of the fact that it wasn't in our best interest to do so. We recommended help from shamans and other people that can help in that area. Not that we were ill-equipped, but it was just something where our focus wasn't there. It's not that we couldn't have helped us, but we also have to think of the safety of our team, and especially having two, members who are younger and still learning. And we did not want any attachments. I've had attachments. My investigator, Pam, I'm sure has had attachments. And we just had one where one of our investigators was down in Arkansas at a cemetery, and she didn't guard herself, and she didn't take care of herself the way she should have. And she had an attachment and brought it home, and it wreaked havoc in her apartment. And so when I saw her at work the next day, I knew right away. I walked up to her and said, "What did you do?" And she was like, "What?" And then I told her, and she was kind of freaking out because she was like, "How can you see that?" And I'm like, "Hello." And so we had to cleanse one of our investigators. So there are dangerous situations. There's also people who think it's fun to trap investigator or ghost hunters, and just because of the fact that they're doing something nefarious, and want to see the reactions of what happens when they put these investigators or ghost hunters in this situation and somebody can get hurt. I mean, there's a lot of evil in this world, and we just are very forthright in thinking about that. And so we are very careful on what cases we do and don't take.
I don't know if you can answer this, but what were those witches doing with these spirits? Were they like summoning them or using them?
Basically, yeah. Yeah. Yep. It was short of possession, for them, and we have other friends in the paranormal field that are mediums. I have a friend up north. She's really good, and I had ran across her, and she said, "Yeah, don't stay away from that." And then I have a friend in California who is basically an author, TV personality. I won't say her name, but I ran this person's picture with her, and she said, do not go anywhere near that person. So, yeah, so we basically we won't just take any case. We have to think of the protection of the team and what is the true reason of why we're doing what we're doing. And, we're not careless in that way. Just to get a case, if it's not in our best interest, and if it's better that somebody else that's more capable of doing it, then that's what we'll do.
Now, are some of these spirits actually malevolent or just outright evil? I mean, or are they all just kind of lost?
Both. The first, malevolent and evil, and yeah, both. I mean, there are some that are lost. There are some that are lost and filled with hatred and anger and rage, which only accelerates that emotion, basically, that they're expressing. And, it's kind of like they're basically just making it worse for them. It prevents them from crossing into the light. It makes it harder for them to cross over. So yeah, there's somebody who dies and is really ticked off because they died a certain way and they had something to do and they were really mad, and that can hinder them, and it can get worse. And then they don't want to accept this and they don't want to do that, and and they can't understand why people can't hear them, and they're mad, and they realize they're dead. It's worse, and so there's lots of cases like that where spirits that have died tragic deaths are just not happy. And then there's some that poof, cross over right away. Don't know how that works. I won't know until I get over there. but just one of the mysteries, I guess.
Can you still help those people that are like that angry?
Oh yeah. I mean, you could basically, it's almost like going to therapy. I mean, it's almost like sitting down with a patient and saying, okay, I know you're angry, I know you're this, and I know you're that, but let's try to, help you out here. And the more information we get about that person, and we explain it to him or her that, this is the way you died, and this is what happened, and your family's moved on, and you can move on, and to reassure them. And sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it's just instantaneous. Once they realize that they're on the wrong side, that their family's waiting for them, because they could pass away 50 years ago and still be in the same state when they were mad and everything else, and creating havoc and all this other stuff, when their family members have already passed and they're waiting for them. We have to explain it to them in that sense of, hey, your family's waiting for you, and it's okay. Giving anybody, a living person or even a deceased person, any type of reassurance speaks volumes.
Do you have any options if the spirit doesn't want to listen to you, it wants to stay in that place and still wants to terrorize people?
Usually, we can help them along a little bit more. Pam is better at that than I am. I don't know exactly how she does it. We can banish somebody from a location, but it makes them wander. They'll just find someplace else to go, and maybe that's all you can do. You know what I mean? For peace of mind for the living is, you put the barrier around the house or the business or whatever, and they can't come in. That's not been done by me personally. Pam, my other investigator, who's a medium, she's done it. She's had to do it to her house because she's had spirits get contact her all the time. But yeah, it's heartbreaking because the whole thing of trying to help the deceased in that sense, you kind of lose a piece of yourself in there, because of the fact that if you're not able to help that person, it's almost like, not being able to help a living person. Like if somebody is an addict and they won't give up their addiction, that's kind of the way it feels for a medium, for me anyways. If I can't help that person who's deceased, then I feel like I've lost something, and yeah, it's just, it's sometimes it's hard to do, but I haven't personally ran into anything like that, and I hope I never do. I mean, I really just hope that I could, help people and the deceased and living.
Do you have any difficulty like explaining all this kind of stuff to maybe like the homeowner that's asked you to come in and they don't really, maybe they're not familiar with this stuff at all?
We basically, we try to, not that we try to dummy it down a little bit, but we try to make it so that people can understand that, hey, this is this is who we are. Whether you believe it or not, you called us to help you. This is what we do. And, you want to find out this, or you have a list of things that you want to know and this and that, we'll explain it to you the best way we can. Most people are pretty receptive when they call a paranormal investigative group. They're open already to that idea. We haven't ran into anybody saying, "Oh, you're full of garbage," So people have been really receptive. And with the way things are going on now, I mean, I would think that with the explosion of the paranormal field in the last 10 to 15 years, there's been more high acceptance of this field with people who maybe 10 years ago didn't believe in it, but now do, and are more open to this type of stuff. And plus, you got to remember, as of recent, with the whole thing of COVID, people staying home, they can't find anything on watch. Who knows? Maybe they're watching some paranormal shows or something and learning more about it that way. So I think it's just one of those things where I think that the majority of people who don't know are maybe more open-minded.
Do you have any, well, this is kind of a two-part question. Do you have any advice for people that think they might be mediums, or folks that want to start their own kind of paranormal investigation stuff?
If anybody thinks that they might have gifts such, research what you think, research how you feel, research what's happening to you. If you think that falls under the line and falls in line with being a medium or a clairvoyant or even an empath, somebody who could sense something or somebody's emotions or senses somebody's, feelings or, sadness or whatever, research. You got to continue to learn, and that's the biggest thing the crux of it is you want to know, is this possible? Is this something that I am? Is this something that could be? Well, very well could be. There could be a reason why you had these feelings or had these thoughts or whatever, you got to just stick your nose in a book and research, or talk to people or communicate with a group of people, like-minded people who are like that. Maybe they could shed some light on, what you're going through. Don't just dismiss it or think you're crazy, because you're short selling yourself if you think that, you're going crazy, or, there's a reason that maybe this is happening. I'm a firm believer there is no such thing as coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. So some people want to explore that. There's people that have never explored it. There's people that that want to explore it and never had any iota of a signal that makes them think that they're clairvoyant or anything. But they want to research it because they just want to know. They want to tap into that. There's lots of people who go to like mediumship classes, and there's mediumship like universities overseas. I can't remember the one that I was just seeing about, but they want to know: is this possible? Is this something that can help? And you got to realize too that there's also, it's not just being clairvoyant. It's a whole gamut of gifts. Once you open that box or that gift, that present, so to speak, there's different things that can go with that. You can help heal people. You can lay hands on people. You can, it's just, it's a big box, let's put it that way. So,
And they're not alone. I think sometimes people, when I talk to people, they think they're alone, but there's so many people.
Right. And to realize that if somebody is going through this, or if somebody's listening to this and thinking, I might be a medium, or I might be clairvoyant or empathic or even a sensitive, there's groups for that. There's groups that you could talk to, I think the days of being shunned by the public is far few in between anymore. I still struggle with that. I don't care to really announce, hey, over here, I'm a medium, I'm this, I'm that. I struggled with that for a long time, but I have to put one foot in front of the other in order to continue on to the path that I've been chosen, that I have chosen to do.
And for the folks that, have no maybe psychic or abilities, but they want to be a paranormal investigator. It seems like you had some thoughts on those people. What would you say to those people that are just thinking about starting?
It's all about intention. It's all about ask yourself the 3 questions. Why do I do this? Who do I do it for? And is this, I would say it's 3 questions. I would say the 3rd question is, can I help? And you have to answer, ask yourself those questions, because if you ask the question, if you say, why do I want to do this? Say, well, I like the thrill, I like the high. Okay, to me, it is what it is. I mean, if that's what you want, but you've got to also back it up with, hey, I want to do it with good intentions. I want to do it because of this, even though it's a thrill. But if you're going into it like that, your intention has to be pure. And yes, your intention has to be good, because if your intention is nothing but, those spirits are going to know. If you go into a location, and those spirits are going to know your intentions right away. And who knows what you're going to get. So if you've got really bad intentions that you just want to go in there to provoke, and they can sense that, and if you have, let's say you have anger issues from previously, whatever, you know what I mean? It's just, there's some people that should not be ghost hunters or paranormal investigators, but they are. How they do it, I don't know. Excuse me. So you have to be true to yourself. And when you ask yourself those 3 questions, you need to take stock of where you're at. Am I doing this for the greater good? Am I doing this just to find information or, about history, or am I here to help? I mean, there are just strictly ghost hunters. People go in, they want to get the proof. They want to, because it's a high or it's this or that. That's fine. That's what you want to do. But remember, your intention has to be good in order to do that. If you want the best evidence, go in there with the best intentions. And if you're let's use this as an example. If you're a bully and all you do is bully people all day, and you say, yeah, I'm going to go bully some ghosts and do whatever, that's your intention. Now, you're on your own. And to me, that's kind of crappy. So
probably isn't going to turn out too well for the person too, I don't think.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This hour has flown by. I'd love to have you back on the show.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about you and your organization, where should they go?
You can find us on Instagram on Wisconsin Paranormal Research. I think they have it as Wisconsin Paranormal. You can also follow my personal page, Spirit Hawk 26, on Instagram. And then we have our Facebook page, which is Wisconsin Paranormal Research. And then we have one on Twitter, which is Wisconsin Paranormal Research, Spirit Realms, at Spirit Realms, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'll make sure to have all those. Oh, yeah.
Our website is actually, we have a website, but our website is we're getting a new one.
A work in progress.
It's in the early stage.
Yes.
Yes, actually.
Well, I'll make sure to have all those links in the show notes. Thank you again so much for your time and your insights. This was just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, no, I truly appreciate you having me on your show. I'm, humbled. Let's put it mildly, humbled that you had contacted me and reached out to me to be on your show. I'm very grateful. And remember, there's no coincidences. So there is a reason.
Yes. I'd love to talk to you more about this stuff. I have to like digest and think about all of this stuff. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. So I greatly appreciate everything. And thank you again for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that amazing conversation with Jay Hill as much as I did. Like I said, I'd love to have him back on the show sometime. On our next episode, I'll be talking to Richard McGill, a man who claims to be in contact with extraterrestrials. Not only is he in contact with aliens, but these aliens also make art that he photographs. He claims to be the personal photographer to extraterrestrials. I'll also be talking with a very insightful chicken man on the next episode of the Podcast of Mystery, available for download right now. Thanks for your time today and for listening to the show. I really appreciate it. Please remember to tell a friend about the Podcast of Mystery. That word of mouth advertising is absolutely essential for the growth of this little show. That's the number one way people find new podcasts. So please tell everyone you know about the Podcast of Mystery. You can find more information about this audio program at podcastofmystery.com. Thank you so much for listening.